Hello, today we are going to address the question, how do we find the gross profit of a lemonade stand? And we are going to approach this issue using the driver framework, which I'll touch on a little bit on the next slide. So here's a little layout of the driver framework, which we'll be going through today to address our question. First, we will define and discover, then we'll replicate, represent, we will implement, validate, evolve, and then finally reflect. So the first part of our framework here, we are going to define and discover. So we have defined our problem as how do you find the gross profit of a lemonade stand? And so we have defined our problem, and we will discover the solution for this problem. And as part of the defining, we are also defining it as that we need to know our revenue and our cost of goods sold in order to find our revenue. So secondly, after we have defined our problem, we're going to replicate and represent. So for this, we are going to reiterate that we need to find our input, our revenue, and then also find our cost of goods sold, and then finally compute gross profit. So now we kind of know the different pieces that we'll need to, when we use our AI, we'll be using Gemini today. So we kind of have those things kind of laid out, and we know what we want to input into AI. So after we have replicated and represented, we will implement. So in order to do this, we will instruct AI what we want the code or the financials to be in order to solve our problem of how to find the cost of goods sold of a lemonade stand. So I'll show that here on the next slides. I put this into AI. I clearly outlined that the objective is to follow my instructions to code for gross profit of a lemonade stand, and explained our plan, which we represented in step 2 of the driver framework, which was to first find revenue, then cost of goods sold, and then finally compute the gross profit. I also inputted a few general rules there. Keep it simple. Our principle for coding is Python, and also just reiterating that we do not want to use functions or classes unless 100% necessary. So this is all part of our or implementing stage of the driver framework. So this is the code that AI gave us, a simple Python script to help calculate the gross profit. So as you can see there, they followed our 3 steps that we established in the represent stage. So first, they found the revenue of the lemonade stand, and we remembered that the revenue equals price per cup plus cups sold. So they then, as number 2, found the cost of goods sold there, which is the cost of lemons plus cost of sugar plus cost of cups. And then they computed the gross profit, which is found by taking the revenue minus the cost of goods sold. And then they laid out all of the code there of how we would find the revenue of a lemonade stand. And then finally there, they gave us some more clarity of each step of how to calculate that. So we would calculate revenue, then cost of goods sold, then compute gross profit, as we touched on earlier. So this brings us up to the next step of our driver framework, which is validation. So in order to validate, we can run this code several times. So as we ran it in class a few weeks ago, or last week, I guess, we ran the same code, and I got a similar code back, and I validated it with my peers in class. So that is our validation. And then we can evolve to a bigger problem. So the bigger problem that I saw with this is, even though all I asked AI to do was to help us know how to calculate the revenue for a lemonade stand, it can actually help with calculating the revenue in anything. So it could be larger scale in corporations and companies, or in small businesses, or it could be something as little as a lemonade stand, or some other like small, like a garage sale, or like one day things like that, or for bigger companies. So the bigger problem here is not just how do you calculate the revenue for a lemonade stand specifically, but how do you calculate the revenue for any company, any business, any startup, anything like that. And we now know that no matter what the organization or company, whether it's a lemonade stand or Apple or Accenture or a bigger company like that, we know how to solve for revenue. And finally, reflect, kind of similar to what I spoke on in the E or evolve, or not. Yes, the E or evolve to a bigger problem step in the driver framework. Kind of as I reflected on this question and this project, one of my big takeaways was that it's all kind of goes back to the basics or the simple things and simple formulas. Like in here, we figured out how to calculate the revenue of a lemonade stand, but it could translate into bigger companies or into things like garage sales or startups or Etsy sellers and things like that. And this can help me if I ever decide to sell anything. I have created different like crocheted animals or stickers and other things like that and sold them to family and friends. And I calculated my cost of goods sold, but for some reason I never really thought to calculate the revenue itself. So this could be really a helpful tool for me to even input specific numbers into Gemini and have AI help me calculate the revenue that I have made, because I haven't really done that before. I haven't done a great job tracking my supply costs and then my cost of goods sold. So I think it could be really helpful for me personally to try to calculate my revenue for these small crafts that I've sold to see how much money I'm making. Thank you.